In fact, it's a perfect song that Danny wrote because we are talking about peace. We're talking about love today. And as you know, we are in the middle of our summer series called Movies to Live By. Now, we're correlating the movies to live by with our core values. This is our fourth movie in the series, and we are aligning it with the core value of loving. So it's really kind of an exciting core value to have because we all have love within us and we all have love to give. And so as we open up to this particular core value, we will recognize that I have picked, at Val's suggestion, a really unique movie to illustrate love. It's actually a documentary. It came out in 2011, and it's called Urban Roots. Now, I just know everyone has seen it, yes? Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, well, I just want to say that we have it available in the church for those of you who would like to see it, certainly. But it is a very meaningful and a timely movie, a documentary, because it's about the people of Detroit. And when you think of Detroit, don't you think of a vacation land hotspot? Right? Like you want to go there. And that's how the people of Detroit felt. The city, as you know, underwent some major urban blight. It was a highly industrial city. It was a city that I believe was the fourth largest city for middle-class people to make a high amount of money and have high wages and things back in its heyday when it was called the Motor City. But then things changed dramatically, and the city went through a massive decline. People left. They abandoned their neighborhoods. They abandoned their homes. There's a lot of crime there. There's a lot of emptiness that has occurred in the last 15 years or so of that city. But it's not the whole story. It's not the whole story at all. And in fact, this wonderful movie shows us, this documentary shows us how the people of Detroit have reclaimed their lives, and they've reclaimed their city through an act of urban farming, urban gardening. And so does everybody know what that means, what urban gardening is? Well, this is what it means, in case you're wondering. What it means is that it's a movement that has gone on in this country and actually throughout the world in which people take abandoned areas, abandoned homes, and they tear them down and they create gardens in the middle of the city. And oftentimes, the places where these gardens are places that are in the middle of an inner city. They're impoverished areas. They're places where there's a lot of crime or where things have really fallen apart. And that's exactly what the people of Detroit did back when this movie was documented in 2011. And Detroit became a banner city for urban gardening, for urban farming. And what makes them so unusual in their endeavors is that we see that the gardening is a metaphor for life. That when they use the gift of gardening, what they do is they learn to grow and cultivate seeds that become food that nourish them and give them physical life, but it also gives them spiritual life. And so through the process of gardening, many of them learn how to give themselves life. They learn how to love and value themselves. And they've also learned how to love and care for others. And so let me begin by sharing part of the introduction of this movie with you. And it begins by these words. It took men like Henry Ford, William Durant, and Lee Iacocca to build the city of Detroit. But it's taken a bunch of strong-willed, self-taught urban farmers to save it. In the film, we see how people who have never touched earth with their hands become master gardeners. We see how people that do not have grocery stores near them, people that have nothing that has any access or liveliness to healthy, wholesome food, none of that. In fact, their food, their produce is limited to convenience stores and gas stations, and we all know what kind of fruit and fresh produce is there, right? But it shows how people learned to live this way because they didn't have access to quality, wholesome food. And it also shows how these people turned around these run-down, abandoned neighborhoods, and they cultivated tremendous, amazing gardens that also became so big and so large that they oftentimes also were used for commercial use to feed the people and to also go forward and bring more good beyond the community out into their cities and out into the world. There is one woman in particular that gets interviewed, and she just stays in my mind. She's this woman who says, I never knew that I could grow anything. I didn't know what it was like, but I did it. I planted this seed, and it grew up. And it's like a child that you grow up and you take care of and you watch it grow in front of you. She says, I did it. And then she said, well, okay, me and God, we did it. And then she says, well, okay, me and God and nature, we did it. But you can feel the pride in her voice and the joy and the feeling of wonder that happens. And I'm especially astonished by when she said, I never knew I could do this. I never knew that this was possible. And in those words, I hear self-love. I hear self-worth. I hear the ability to be self-reliant and to value oneself. And that kind of example happens over and over and over again in the movie. And we watch how it unfolds in a beautiful way where people learn to love themselves, and then because they are full, they learn to love others. And it is indeed a testament to the power of love. In Unity, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, he talks about love as one of our 12 divine powers. He also reminds us that love is the pure essence of being that binds us all together as the whole human family. Love is what brings us together beyond differences, beyond separation. Love is a choice as well as a power. And he reminds us that when we choose to activate love, then its consciousness will conserve the power of substance, the power of creation itself, that essence, and it will reconstruct, it will rebuild, and it will restore everyone and everything it touches. It is indeed this power of love that we see in the movie again and again and again. I think that at this time in our country, and this time even in our cities, I don't know if this is true for you, but I have heard so many stories, I have experienced so many things in these last weeks where people, in their hearts, they feel love, but they don't know how to express it. They don't know what they can do beyond their walls. And so the timing of this movie could not be more perfect. And you'll notice that as Norm read the Daily Word, it could not be more perfect for today. I mean, as we hear the beautiful words, I behold the Christ essence in myself and in others. Are these not the words of love? And this is what happens in this film. We see love expressed again and again because we need to go to a place where we choose harmony, where we choose oneness. We don't need to wait for it to happen. We don't need to hold back and see what somebody else does before we decide to be loving. We need to stand up and choose it and then express it as spiritual beings. And that is exactly what these individuals do in Detroit. And when I watched them unfold in this movie, I noticed that the usual barriers, the barriers that alienate, such as color, such as class, such as culture, such as age and ability, all fall away. And I don't for a minute think that everyone decided to create these gardens and they just decided to have a love fest. I don't think that everyone came from such an elevated consciousness that they just embraced each other. I think they chose love. I think they decided to release the smallness of the mind and look beyond those typical barriers or others that we create when we get into the smallness of our minds. And I think they chose to go beyond from the Christ within. And so it's a powerful story, you know, because it's real life. It's not a Hollywood movie that has a happy ending because that's what the writer wrote. It has a happy ending because the people chose to be love. And they didn't just choose it one day. They chose it again and again and again. It is an amazing thing. And through their ability to choose love, they opened up to the power of working in the garden and coming together, and they found that within themselves, they became more peaceful and loving. And we know that that's how love works. When we take care of ourselves inwardly, when we nurture ourselves inwardly with the divine gifts of love, peace, and harmony, of forgiveness, of understanding, of care, then we are filled enough that we can truly join with one another. And so take a look at this first clip where you hear some individuals talking about the gift of gardening, which is another metaphor for choosing life that nurtures and heals.
It's nice because like sometimes, you know, we'll be all stressed and we'll have all this pent up anger and aggression, but a lot of the times it's because we're not getting enough physical work, and this definitely takes care of that.
What do we need to sustain this person, you know? And it, you know, you can give me drugs or something to keep me going and keep me happy, but what is really going to keep me going over the long haul, both nutritionally, economically, and spiritually?
So I've had lots of different jobs, and I'll say that even though sometimes like the sun and like the physical labor is like more taxing than, let's say, if I stood like and I took orders at like a McDonald's or Taco Bell, or even if I worked at like a factory, I feel like it's more peaceful.
The way I see people work on the line, I don't work half as hard in the dirt. Don't get me wrong, it is hard work, but it's not repetitious and paceful work. It's at your own leisure, your own pace, and you see your work, your profits, your growth, your everything, whereas the truck you build in the plant is out the door in somebody else's hands. You don't know what that product is like when he gets it, whereas people come back and say, yeah, I ate some of your tomatoes and they were great, or your microgreens are the best that I've had, you know, where you get self-satisfaction, not somebody else's.
But like, I think people are really getting out of touch with nature and are putting too much energy into the wrong things. Like, it's nice to have personal possessions. I love my iPod, but I'm not gonna, you know, go crazy for it and like kill myself to get an iPhone or, you know, the next fancy new whatever. Because I think I don't know, I just think that this is more satisfying.
The woman that was just last speaking was talking about finding through gardening the ability to get in touch with her inner soul. And the individuals speaking were talking about how peaceful it was to have meaningful work, to have work with purpose that brought them to a place where they felt good about what they were doing, and they were able to receive some words of appreciation and gratitude for what they were doing because it made a personal difference. And I think that that is one of the pieces that makes this movie so wonderful. I think we all have those needs and desires, don't we? We need to feel that what we do is valued. We need to feel that what we do matters, that it makes a difference, that it brings us peace. And out of those ways of choosing, what happens is we learn to become more peaceful and more loving within ourselves. Albert Einstein tells us that we must look deep, and that we must look deep into nature, because when we do that, we will understand everything better. And how I see that is that he's saying that as we move into nature, as we move into those simple things, what happens is we return to ourselves and we open the door to become still enough to allow our spiritual essence to bring us understanding, to bring us to a deeper place. And we know this in meditation, that when we are quiet enough, the Spirit of God can talk to us. The Spirit of God can comfort us. The Spirit of God can lift us up to another way of being. And so we are no longer mere human beings, but we are indeed spiritual beings that are lifted and raised in our consciousness and in our peace. And so we see the people of Detroit doing that there, and we also know that working in the garden is the way that they get there. And I think for all of us, it's a good thing to look at how are we in touch with nature. We may not have access to gardens. We may not have what we call a green thumb, and maybe the plants in our house all die and look pathetic. I don't know. But it's not that you necessarily need to garden, but you just need to find a place to come back to yourself. Find a way in nature, find a way in simple activity that brings you home. And that's what they are advocating, and they do it through gardening, which is an ancient act that gives life. The Australian Charles Cook, who is a philosopher, he tells us that our deepest roots are in nature. And that no matter who we are, and no matter what we do, and no matter where we live, we are irrevocably linked with the rest of creation. Sometimes we get so far out there that we forget that in essence, we are linked with all that is. And when we start to feed that and nurture that, then we have the ability to truly be love and connect with all beings and all things more fully. You know, one of the greatest parts of this movie came in a most unexpected way. And it showed up, for me especially, I was really moved by it, but it showed up when I saw individuals that I would not expect to see reach out and find that through gardening they could be healed. They, like us, have some spaces inside where we question our worth and our value, where sometimes we may have regrets, or we may have done things that we really do not want, headlined in the Kansas City Star. And so these are individuals who are making a new path for themselves. They are going forward in life, and they are residents of alcohol chemical dependency treatment center called Elmhurst. And it's so touching to watch these individuals as they open up to being healed by love through gardening. And as they are opened in this way, what happens is their hearts become full with dignity, with respect, with caring, and they are able and they are desirous of sharing that out with the larger community. Take a look at this clip.
My name is Ken Coleman. I'm over here at Elmhurst Treatment Center. We're doing a garden to give back to the community because I have community service to do, and this has helped me out doing my community service while I'm getting treatment over at Elmhurst.
Elmhurst program is a treatment facility mainly for alcohol and drug abuse. So we use the vacant lots in a positive way. We plant gardens, it's open to the public, and they give the guys a chance to give back to the community.
The court system gave me 150 hours to do, and I come out here and work off the hours that way.
It sure beats picking up papers on the side of the expressway.
I'm already over my limit of my hours. I'm doing this now on my own time just to do it, you know what I mean?
Okay, here you got the lettuce plants. They're doing real good. We planted them from real little small plants, and within the last 2 weeks, they have really shot right up.
They got mustard greens, they got watermelons, cantaloupe.
Eggplant in it too, a lot of beans.
Bell peppers, regular onions.
Fresh garden vegetables, I tell you what, are better than the stuff you buy from the store, I'm gonna tell you that. Them hothouse tomatoes and all that, they don't taste nothing like these fresh tomatoes when they pop up.
You know, you watch it grow from nothing. It's rewarding to see the stuff grow.
Once it's all, you know, ready to harvest, anybody in the community that wants some, you know, I mean, they can come and get it.
There's some people that just don't have anything, you know. So it's nice to have a garden here where somebody can come down the street and just say, you know, I need some vegetables. Some people knock on the door and I actually just tell them, hey, you don't have to knock. If it's there, you know, you're welcome to it.
Mash it down. There you go. Yeah, I'm on my way home. I've been doing a little shopping and stuff. And then I'll stop by here and book this guy standing out here.
And I can just see people stopping us all the time and telling us how good a job we're doing. I mean, it makes me feel good. Somebody's telling me I did something good for a change, you know?
We've been out here, we work pretty hard out here, man, taking care of this. It's a job. I would say it's dangerous. Yeah, you hear gunshots all the time. And to be honest, this place has been shot up a few times here. What if people come over here and mess it up and this and that? But no, nobody, you know what I mean? Everybody's respected it, you know what I mean? Because it benefits everybody in the community.
But if they did more, the community would really get involved because it's feeding the oldest and the homeless and people like that.
But we take care of the area that's surrounding us. And if more people in the city would do that, I'm pretty sure the poverty level would raise.
It's a win-win, you know, everybody benefits from it, you know what I mean? The area gets cleaned up and, you know, the people in the community get stuff from the garden, you know what I mean? So I believe it's a win-win situation.
I get to help the community. What I took from the community at one time, I'm giving back to the community right now.
It's so beautiful to see how the power of love goes out. You can feel the joy, can't you, in the individuals as they love to love. They have something to give that they recognize, and it's their joy to give it. It is such a heart-warming experience to watch this happen and know it's happening in the most desolate of communities, not only in Detroit, but around the world. And there are some people that say that through this gardening and through other ways, that whatever way it is that we build community, what happens is we recognize that we all have a need to be more than ourselves, that there are things that happen in community that cannot happen in other ways. The French philosopher Jean Vanier tells us this. He says that community enables us to welcome and to help people in a way that we can't as individuals. For when we pool our strength and when we share our work and when we share the responsibility, what happens is we welcome many people, even those in deep distress, and perhaps we help them find self-confidence and inner healing. And the social activist Dorothy Day reminds us that community-based and generated in love, also serves a deeper need. She says that it helps us to remember that no one need be forgotten. She said we've all known the long loneliness, and we've learned that the only solution to that is love, and that love comes within community. I started doing some research about Kansas City, and I discovered that within the last 10 years, there are 31 gardens here of urban farming. And in fact, at the 9 o'clock service, one of our people, Max, said that he was one of the beginners of a garden on Troost Avenue 10 years ago. And you know, I so admire that, because I see that today when we just say, what are we going to do? And sociologists say there's so much poverty, and if it weren't for poverty, we wouldn't have so much crime. And other people would say we have so much hatred, and if we didn't have hatred, we wouldn't have so much crime, and we wouldn't have so much violence. So what are we going to do? Well, I think that if we allow love to lead us, love will find a way. It opens the door to see beyond. And just like we see in this movie, and we notice that when someone counts on another person to garden with them, to share the work, to share the responsibility, and to share the bounty, love is the bridge that unifies. And it doesn't matter if you're black, brown, yellow, red, it doesn't matter. And in the community of love, when you allow me to help your children, and you help my children to grow and to learn, and in this case, to plant seeds and grow peas and grow carrots and grow corn, what happens is we have entrusted each other with our sacred loved ones, and we open the door to peace and harmony. And when we can join together, when we can find a way, be it gardening or a shared purpose in which we can laugh, perhaps we can cry, perhaps we will sweat and toil, and we will prosper together, and we come together, what happens is we become healed, and we become strengthened in body and in mind and in spirit. And when that happens, then I am love and I'm loving. And when you do that, you are love and you are loving. And together we are love and we are loved. And we can love beyond our parameters for the highest good of all. So as we take the message of this movie beyond gardening itself, what we discover is we need to find ways to find life. We need to find ways to reach out, to bridge, to find a way to consciously unite with each other in a way that is love in its full expression. And not only be the givers of love, but be the receivers of love and keep that cycle flowing, just like Rick's saying. Love flows through me and it throws to me and it comes back again. That is what we are called to do and be, to really make a difference. Wouldn't you love to see that happen? And the more that every community takes that on as a conscious decision, a conscious choice, we will see this world, this country, this very city transformed in a meaningful way. So I invite you to take some time in meditation and really think about what that means for you. What does it mean to be love in a meaningful way that makes a difference to promote harmony and peace and well-being? How will that show up for you? And how will you act? I'm going to close with this final clip, and in it you will see that the people of Detroit that have found their way with one another, they recognize that food as the metaphor for life has brought them all together because it nurtures their being. But then you'll also see that they, by example, were also the inspiration for many cities throughout not only this country but also throughout the world. And so as we watch this final clip, let us feel their joy and feel the love that's beneath and behind and around it. And then let's go forward with even greater conviction to be greater love, to bring us all together, bound together as one, in harmony and in peace.
Food brings us all together, doesn't it? You know, but in the process of growing your own food and transforming vacant land into gardens and farmland, that brings people together even more than, you know, a meal.
In Detroit, I'm overwhelmed by the generosity, the collaboration that happens just on my block alone. And I think that is because you cannot make it in Detroit if you have an individualistic mindset.
There are a lot of us who do a lot of things together, you know. Tear down the garage. The garage fell down this year because the snow was too heavy. We all had it torn apart. By the end of the day, it would have taken, you know, most people would have just left it there for years. And we have that kind of power. It's kind of cool.
Like, it is kind of like we're creating a utopian society. A lot of people don't even have to buy their produce in the summer because so many people have gardens. The people who live behind me have like 20 chickens. You know, we don't have to buy eggs. It seems like a lot more people, they want to rely more on themselves.
Yeah, well, it makes you feel in control. Being able to come to your community and produce, you know, such a product. I can't explain the feeling, but, you know, you get what I'm trying to say.
Literally, the whole world is looking at Detroit to see what happens. And I think Detroit has an opportunity to redefine urbanism and define what happens to a post-industrial city.
And hopefully it doesn't stop with just the garden. It's, you know, imagining an entirely new world.
It's been a long time coming, but we're gonna be okay. We're gonna get ourselves together and be on our way. I know the rain comes hard, we done seen better days. It's time to put our hands together